Keanu Reeves did not plan to be standing on a stage in front of hundreds of college students that night. He never thought he would be facing an outspoken professor who had spent years mocking faith and laughing at anyone who believed in God. Yet here he was, backstage in a small university auditorium, his hands cold, his heart beating so hard it almost drowned out the sound of the crowd. It all started with an invitation that had come to him weeks before, an invitation to speak at a special lecture series for young students. They had asked him to talk about his life, about kindness, about how he kept hope alive even after so much loss. Keanu did not know how to say no. He loved speaking with young people, telling them what he had learned the hard way, that life breaks you, but it can also heal you if you let it. What he did not know was that Dr. Peter Cole, a famous atheist professor at the university, would be there too. Dr. Cole was known for tearing apart students who tried to speak about faith in his philosophy classes. He called God a fairy tale for the weak and loved the sound of his own voice echoing through the lecture halls. Keanu stood near the side curtain, listening to Dr. Cole's opening speech. The professor's voice was sharp, almost mocking, dripping with pride as he listed every reason why belief was foolish. Students laughed along, some uneasy, others enjoying the show. Keanu could feel his hands tremble. He was not a preacher. He was not a scholar. He was just a man who had seen more darkness than most and still found small lights in the shadows. What could he say that would matter? What could he say that would not sound silly next to the professor's big words? A young woman named Claire, the student who had invited him, touched his arm. Her eyes were wide with worry. "Keanu, you don't have to do this. He's doing this to trap you. He wants to embarrass you in front of everyone." Keanu looked at her, his voice calm but honest. "Maybe he will, but maybe someone here tonight needs to hear something different. Not clever arguments, just truth." When they called his name, the applause was polite but uncertain. Students shifted in their seats, whispering. Some were curious, some were ready to laugh at him. Some wanted him to win, to show that faith was not just old stories, but something real. Keanu stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright, almost blinding, but he found comfort in the simple sound of his own heartbeat. He walked to the podium, looked at the faces waiting for him to speak, and felt the old pain in his chest, the pain that came every time he talked about what he believed. Dr. Cole leaned back in his chair, a small smirk on his face. He tapped his pen on the table, like he was daring Keanu to say something he could tear apart. Keanu cleared his throat. His voice was soft at first, but steady. "I'm not here to debate you, Professor," he began, looking right at Dr. Cole. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to share what I know. Maybe it will matter to someone. Maybe it won't. But it's true to me." The professor chuckled. "Mr. Reeves, we don't care about feelings. We care about facts. So tell us, where's your God when people suffer? Where was he when your best friend died? When your daughter died? Where was he when you were left alone?" The room fell silent. Some students looked uncomfortable. Some leaned forward, waiting for Keanu to break. Keanu felt his eyes sting with tears that he did not wipe away. "He was with me," he said quietly. "He was with me in every dark room I sat in alone. He was with me when I chose to forgive instead of hate. He was with me when I held the hands of strangers, when I gave what little I had to someone who needed it more. I don't see him like you want me to. I see him in the broken places, in the small moments of kindness that make life bearable." Dr. Cole scoffed. "So you see him in people being nice to each other. That's not God. That's human nature. That's survival." Keanu shook his head, his voice stronger now. "No. Survival is about putting yourself first. Survival is selfish. But kindness, real kindness, is not selfish. It costs you something. It means giving without expecting anything back. It means loving people who hurt you. It means sitting with someone in their darkest hour even when you're hurting too. That's not just human nature. That's something bigger." A few students started to nod. Dr. Cole leaned forward, his voice like poison. "So you're saying your God lets people suffer so you can play hero? Do you hear how foolish that sounds?" Keanu looked around the room, searching for the faces who looked like they wanted him to win. Not for himself, but for them. "I'm saying we live in a broken world. Bad things happen. I don't pretend to have all the answers. But I know this: faith doesn't take away the pain. It gives it purpose. It turns wounds into doors that let light in for other people. Maybe I lost people I loved so I could sit with someone else who's losing theirs and say, "You're not alone." The professor opened his mouth to fire back, but Keanu turned to the students instead. Some of you are here tonight because you've been laughed at for believing. You've been told you're foolish for hoping. I'm not here to prove you're right or wrong. I'm here to remind you that your faith is not something to be ashamed of. It's not weak to believe in something you can't see. It's strong. It takes courage to hold on to hope in a world that wants to take it away from you. The room was so quiet now that Keanu could hear someone sobbing softly in the back row. He looked at Dr. Cole and saw something he did not expect: a flicker of doubt. A crack in the professor's armor. Keanu took a step away from the podium, his voice gentle but unshakable. "I'm not a preacher. I'm not here to win a debate. I'm just a man who's lost too much to believe in nothing. And if my words tonight help even one of you feel less alone, then I'm okay with being mocked. I'd rather be a fool for hope than a king of empty arguments." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, a few students began to clap. It was not loud or forced. It was quiet, like the beginning of a wave no one could stop. One by one, more hands joined in. Dr. Cole sat frozen, his pen still tapping, but his smirk was gone. As Keanu stepped off the stage, Claire met him at the bottom of the steps, tears in her eyes. "You didn't argue," she whispered. "You just told the truth." Keanu smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be real. When Keanu stepped outside the university hall that night, the cold air hit his face like a soft slap, waking him from the heavy tension that had built up on stage. He stood under the streetlight for a moment, watching students pour out in small groups, whispering about what had just happened. Some looked at him with shy smiles, nodding as they passed. Some looked down, deep in thought, words still sinking into places they did not know were empty. Claire ran up to him, breathless, her notebook clutched to her chest. "Keanu, I can't believe you did that. You didn't argue, you didn't get angry, you just spoke from your heart. That's what we needed." Keanu gave her a tired smile. "Thank you for inviting me. I didn't plan to face him like that. I just couldn't stand there and say nothing." "You changed something tonight," Claire said. "People will talk about this for a long time." Keanu shook his head gently. "I don't want them talking about me. I want them to talk about what matters. That hope is still worth holding onto, even when smart people say you're stupid for it." They walked together to the small campus cafe. Claire insisted he have something warm before leaving. The cafe was nearly empty. Just a few students sitting with coffee and laptops, their eyes darting up when they saw him. Whispers floated through the air like little secrets. Keanu sat at a corner table while Claire ordered tea for him. As he waited, a young man approached, maybe 19, thin shoulders hunched under a hoodie. He looked nervous, his hands buried deep in his pockets. "Mr. Reeves," the young man said, voice shaking. "Can I sit for a minute?" Keanu nodded. "Of course." The boy sat, staring at the table. He spoke so quietly Keanu had to lean in to hear. "I just wanted to say thank you. My dad is like Professor Cole. He calls me weak for believing in God. He says it's a crutch. I almost stopped believing. I felt so stupid. But tonight, you made me feel like maybe it's not stupid. Maybe it's brave." Keanu reached across the table, resting his hand lightly over the boy's clenched fist. "It is brave," he said softly. "It's brave to keep your heart open in a world that wants to shut it down. It's brave to forgive people who mock you. Don't let your dad's anger steal your hope." The boy's eyes filled with tears he did not bother to hide. "It's so hard. I feel alone all the time." Keanu squeezed his hand. "You're not alone. I promise you that. Even when people push you away, you're not alone. Hold on to that." Claire returned with 2 cups of steaming tea. She set one down for Keanu, then offered the other to the boy. "You can stay with us as long as you like," she said gently. The boy wiped his eyes, smiling through the pain. "Thank you, really. I needed this tonight more than you know." After he left, Claire sat down across from Keanu, her eyes thoughtful. "Do you ever feel tired?" Carrying this? Trying to give hope when you're hurting too? Keanu looked down at the rising steam from his cup. He took a sip, letting the warmth settle his trembling hands. Yes, all the time. But I remember something my mother used to tell me. When you have extra light, you share it. When you don't, you borrow someone else's. Tonight, I think, I borrowed a bit of light from everyone who still dares to believe. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the soft hum of the coffee machine behind the counter. Outside, students were still drifting across campus, some laughing, some quiet, all carrying pieces of what had happened inside that hall. When he finally stood to leave, Claire hugged him tightly. Promise you'll come back. We need people like you. We need more voices like yours here. Keanu laughed softly. I'm not special, Claire. I'm just a man trying to keep my own faith alive. Maybe that's exactly why you're the one we listen to, she said as he stepped out into the night. His car waiting at the curb, Keanu felt a strange calm in his chest. He knew Professor Cole would go back to his lectures, mocking belief, laughing at the idea of a God who loved broken people. But Keanu also knew that some students would remember the simple truth he spoke, that faith did not need to be shouted to stand strong. He drove back to his small hotel room near the edge of town. He did not turn on the TV. He did not scroll through his phone. He sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker, and let his mind drift back to the young man in the cafe. He hoped he would keep believing. He hoped he would keep forgiving his father. He picked up the small notebook he carried everywhere, the one with pages filled with thoughts about love, forgiveness, and the quiet strength it took to live with both. He wrote down what he had felt on that stage, the fear, the shaking hands, the surprising peace when the truth settled in his chest. Sometimes, he thought, you do not win by fighting louder. You win by standing firm when the world tries to shake you loose. The next morning, Keanu woke up before the sun. The soft glow of the streetlights still poured through the curtains in his small hotel room. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes, thinking about the young man from the cafe and all the students who had quietly slipped him folded notes after his talk, tiny scraps of paper, with words like "Thank you, you gave me hope, I thought I was alone." He carried those notes in his coat pocket now, pressing a hand to them like they were a lifeline. He knew how heavy the world could feel when you believed in something that people mocked. He knew how sharp the loneliness could cut when you had questions that no one seemed to answer. But he also knew that sometimes, just knowing someone else stood beside you could keep your hope alive one more day. That afternoon, he returned to the university for a private lunch Claire had arranged. She had invited a small group of students who wanted to ask him questions, share their stories, and maybe find a little strength to hold onto their faith in a place that tried so hard to pull it away. They sat in a circle in an old classroom. The windows rattled from the wind outside. The students were quiet at first, some too shy to meet his eyes. Keanu sat cross-legged on a chair, notebook resting in his lap, the same calm honesty in his voice that had stilled the entire debate. "Hall, I know it's scary," he told them. "You're young, trying to figure out who you are. People will call you weak for believing in something you can't see. They'll tell you you're foolish for choosing kindness when you could choose anger. But I promise you, faith is not foolish, it's brave. And the people who laugh at you, they're just scared of hope they can't control." A young woman named Emma raised her hand. Her eyes were red from crying. "My brother died last year," she said, voice trembling. "I stopped praying because I thought God didn't care." How do you keep believing when it feels like he's not there? The room fell silent. Keanu's heart ached. He knew that pain too well. He looked at her with eyes so gentle they made her tears fall faster. "When my daughter died," Keanu began softly, "I felt like I was drowning. I asked God, why me? Why take her? I didn't get an answer, not the way I wanted. But then I saw something. Every time I shared my story, someone else opened their heart to me. Someone who was also hurting, also asking why. Our wounds connected. My pain helped someone else feel less alone. Maybe that's why faith matters. Not because it takes the pain away, but because it gives it a purpose bigger than our own understanding." Emma wiped her eyes. She looked calmer now. Like the hole in her chest wasn't as deep when someone else dared to stand there with her. A young man spoke up next. My professor told me religion is just a cage. He says it traps people and makes them weak. Is that true? Keanu chuckled, shaking his head. Love isn't a cage, it's freedom. Faith isn't chains around your mind. It's the light that helps you see your way through the darkness. Don't let someone else's fear of hope become your prison. One by one, they spoke their fears. Betrayal, loneliness, feeling judged, not knowing if they were strong enough to forgive people who hurt them. Keanu listened to every word like it was a fragile treasure. He did not rush to answer. He did not pretend to have all the wisdom in the world. He just told the truth he had lived, that the most beautiful kind of strength was not in proving you were right, but in loving people anyway. After the lunch ended, Claire walked him to the old campus chapel. It was empty, the wooden pews glowing golden in the afternoon sun. They sat side by side, their voices quiet in the still air. I heard Dr. Cole is planning another talk, Claire said. He wants to correct the damage you did, that's how he put it. Keanu smiled, shaking his head. I didn't do damage. I just reminded people that faith is not something he gets to steal from them. Claire bit her lip, nervous. What if he tries to debate you again? Keanu looked up at the stained glass window, the colors washing over his tired face. Then I'll do what I did before. I'll tell the truth. Not because I want to win, but because someone out there is listening. Someone who needs to hear that it's okay to believe in something bigger than themselves. As they sat in the quiet chapel, a janitor walked in, an older man with kind eyes. He looked at Keanu and said, I saw your talk last night. Sir, I want you to know. You made me call my daughter. We hadn't spoken in years. I told her I was sorry. She forgave me. Faith can do that, can't it? Keanu felt his eyes fill with tears he did not bother to hide. Yes, he whispered. Yes, it can. Asterisk a few days later, Keanu returned home to the city. He sat in his small apartment at night, staring at the stack of notes and letters he had brought back from the university. Every piece of paper held a piece of someone's heart, confessions of fear, questions about faith, silent prayers they did not know how to speak out loud. He read them all, one by one, feeling the weight of so many people holding onto hope with trembling hands. It humbled him, this quiet trust strangers placed in him. He knew he was not a priest or a preacher. He was just a man with scars who refused to pretend he had all the answers. Maybe that was why they listened, because he did not claim to be perfect. He just chose love over pride. One night, as he sat by the window, rain pattering gently on the glass, his phone buzzed. It was Claire. Her message was short but urgent. Keanu, Dr. Cole is planning another debate. He's inviting you back. He wants to embarrass you in front of the whole campus. Please don't come if it will hurt you. Keanu stared at the screen for a long time. Part of him wanted to ignore it. He was tired of being questioned, mocked, pushed to the edge of his wounds. But another part of him, the part that remembered the young man in the cafe and the janitor in the chapel, whispered that maybe he needed to stand up again. Not for himself, but for the ones who were too afraid to speak. The next morning, Keanu called Claire. Tell him I'll come, but only if we do it my way. What do you mean? Claire asked, her voice full of worry. No fancy stage, no big lights. I want it in the old chapel. Just him, the students, and me. No shouting match, just truth. Claire agreed, even though she feared what Dr. Cole might say. She knew Keanu's calm voice had shaken the professor more than any argument ever could, and that made him dangerous to a man whose pride depended on being right. A week later, Keanu sat alone in the chapel before everyone arrived. The wooden pews glowed under the warm light of a single row of candles. He closed his eyes, whispered a small prayer, not for victory, but for courage. He asked for words that would not wound but heal, words that would remind the listening hearts that it was okay to doubt and still believe. Soon, the students began to fill the seats. Some sat with arms crossed, waiting for a fight. Others leaned forward, hungry for something real. At the back, Dr. Cole stood with his notes, his face cold and sharp like a knife. When everyone settled, Claire introduced them. She looked at Keanu with eyes full of quiet hope. He gave her a small nod. Drive Cole wasted no time. He stepped forward, his voice echoing off the old stone walls. Welcome, students, tonight. We will once again expose the foolishness of blind faith. Mr. Reeves, since you claim to believe in a God who cares, tell us this. Why does your God stay silent when children starve, when wars rage, when good people die for no reason? The room held its breath. Keanu stood up, moving away from the lectern to stand closer to the students. His voice was calm, steady. I don't know all the answers, he said softly. I wish I did. I wish I could stand here and tell you why innocent people suffer. I can't, but I can tell you what I've seen. I've seen broken people reach out to each other in ways that heal wounds no doctor could. I've seen forgiveness given when it was never deserved. I've seen people who lost everything still choose to give what little they have to someone else. Dr. Cole scoffed. Nice stories. They don't prove anything. Keanu looked him straight in the eyes, his voice unwavering. They prove everything. They prove that in the darkest moments, there is still light. And maybe that light is not an accident. Maybe it's the quiet whisper that tells us you're not alone. A student raised his hand. He looked nervous, his hoodie pulled tight around his face. Mr. Reeves, what if I want to believe but I'm angry? Angry at God. Angry at people who say my doubts mean I don't belong? Keanu walked over and sat on the edge of the front pew, closer to the boy. It's okay to be angry, he said. God can handle your anger. Real faith is not pretending you're okay when you're not. It's standing in your anger, your fear, your brokenness, and still daring to hope. A ripple of murmurs moved through the students. Some wiped their eyes. Even Dr. Cole seemed to shift uncomfortably, as if something inside him was cracking. Keanu turned back to the professor. You spend your days mocking hope because you think it makes people weak. But here's the truth. Mocking is easy. Loving people who laugh at you is not. Forgiving people who hurt you is not. Standing in your pain and saying, I will not let the darkness win. That is strength. Dr. Cole's face flushed red. So you're saying all this pain has a purpose, that a loving God lets us suffer just so we can hug each other in the dark. Keanu shook his head. I'm saying the pain is real. The darkness is real. But so is the light. And maybe we can't stop the storm, but we can be the shelter for someone else. Maybe that's what God is, not a magician who makes life perfect, but the love that refuses to die when everything else falls apart. The chapel fell silent again. Some students started clapping softly, their eyes wide with the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, faith did not mean having all the answers, but choosing to stand anyway. Keanu stepped back, his voice now almost a whisper. If you're here tonight and you feel like you're drowning in your own questions, please know this, you're not alone. Doubt does not make you weak, it makes you human. Love is bigger than doubt. Kindness is stronger than anger. Forgiveness is braver than pride. That is the faith I carry. That is the God I see. The old chapel was still filled with quiet when Keanu stepped back, his last words hanging in the soft glow of the candles. For a moment, no one moved. The students looked at him, not with pity or shallow praise, but with something deeper, a shared relief that maybe they were not as alone as they thought. Dr. Cole stood frozen, his notes clutched in his fist. He was ready to snap back with clever arguments, but the words stuck in his throat. He looked at the faces of his students. Some were crying, some were nodding. Some had a tiny spark of hope in eyes that used to be dull. That spark frightened him. To fill the silence, he barked out, Do not be fooled. Feelings do not change facts. You're all just caught in his story. Stories are not proof. Faith is just a crutch for people who can't face the real world. Keanu turned to him calmly. Maybe faith is a crutch. But tell me, Professor, who in this room has never needed help to stand? The question stunned everyone. A few students even chuckled through their tears. Dr. Cole's face turned red. Keanu kept his voice soft but steady. You say hope is for the weak, but hope has kept me alive when nothing else could. It's the strongest thing I have ever carried. He stepped closer to the professor, lowering his voice so only he could hear. You mock faith because you're angry. I get it. You've been hurt. I see that. But you don't have to stay angry forever. Dr. Cole's eyes flickered. for just a heartbeat. The proud walls cracked, but then he scoffed and looked away. "You don't know me, Reeves." Keanu nodded. "You're right. I don't, but I know pain when I see it. I hope someday you let it go." He turned back to the students. "If you want proof of God, look at the people who choose to love when they have every reason to hate. Look at those who forgive when the world tells them to stay bitter. Look at the ones who keep standing up when life knocks them down again and again. That's not weakness, that's strength, that's faith." The students began to clap louder. Now, Dr. Cole stepped back, defeated not by harsh words, but by the gentleness that made his anger look small. Afterward, the students gathered around Keanu, their questions softer now. One young woman with a notebook asked, "What if I'm not good enough for God to love me?" Keanu took her hands in his. "You don't have to be good enough. You never did. Love doesn't ask if you're worthy. It just says, 'You are mine.'" Another student asked, "How do you forgive someone who ruined your life?" Keanu's eyes grew distant as he thought of old wounds. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It's saying you won't let it poison you anymore. It's letting your heart breathe again. Outside the chapel, the wind blew hard, leaves dancing across the steps like tiny reminders that even the smallest things could be beautiful. Keanu stepped out with Claire by his side. Her eyes were bright but worried. "Keanu, I think you changed something tonight. But you know Dr. Cole won't stop. He'll twist what you said. He'll keep mocking you." Keanu smiled, pulling his coat tighter around him. "Let him. People will always mock what they don't understand. My job isn't to win arguments. It's to plant seeds." He paused at the bottom of the chapel steps. Some students still lingered in the dark, waiting to thank him. One young man stepped forward, trembling, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was going to hurt myself tonight," he said. "I thought nobody cared. But you said God sees us even when no one else does. That saved me." Keanu's throat tightened. He pulled the young man into a hug, holding him like a brother. "You are not invisible," Keanu whispered. "Not tonight. Not ever. Please remember that." He stayed there for a long time, hugging the young man until the shaking stopped. Around them, the campus lights flickered like stars finding their way through the dark. When they finally pulled apart, Claire handed Keanu his old notebook. "What will you do now?" she asked. Keanu looked at the notebook, its pages soft from being opened and closed so many times. "I'll keep telling the truth," he said. "Wherever I go, I'll remind people that they matter, that they're not alone. Even if I never see the seeds grow, I know they're there." He turned back to look at the old chapel, the place where fear and pride had broken under the weight of a quiet love that refused to shout, but could never be silenced. The next morning, Keanu sat alone in a small cafe near the university. The sun poured through the old windows, painting soft gold across the table where his notebook lay open. He turned the pages slowly, reading the words he had scribbled on hotel napkins. Scraps of paper, even receipts, reminders of everything. He wanted to tell the world about faith, hope, and choosing love when anger would be easier. His tea grew cold as he sat there. People came and went, some recognizing him and giving him a shy wave. He smiled back, but his mind was far away, back in the chapel, back in the eyes of the students who found the courage to believe again. He remembered the boy who said he was ready to end his life, the young woman who asked if she was good enough to be loved, the janitor who called his daughter after years of silence. One gentle word, one quiet truth, that was all it took to light up the dark corners of a heart. Keanu's phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire. "You should see this." She sent a video clip. Students from the debate hall gathering on the steps of the university. Holding candles, they were singing quietly, heads bowed together. Someone had made a small sign that read, "Hope is brave." Keanu watched the clip again and again, his eyes wet with tears that fell freely this time. He thought of Dr. Cole, the professor who mocked him so fiercely, and wondered if even his stone heart felt a tiny crack forming. He hoped so. He prayed. So later that day, he walked back to the campus one last time. He wanted no crowd, no cameras, just one final moment to say goodbye to the place where so many hidden stories had found the courage to step into the light. Inside the chapel, the candles were still burning, Claire sat alone in the front pew, waiting for him. She looked tired but peaceful. "You look like you haven't slept," Keanu said, smiling as he sat next to her. "I haven't," Claire admitted. "But it's worth it. People are talking, Keanu. They're meeting in dorms, sharing their stories, asking questions. Not everyone agrees with you, but they're listening. Do you realize what you did?" Keanu shook his head. "I didn't do it. They did. They were ready to remember what they already knew. That faith is not about having all the answers. It's about choosing hope, even when it doesn't make sense." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for showing us that." They sat there in silence for a long time. The old wooden beams creaked overhead. The wind tapped at the stained glass. Keanu thought of all the places he would go after this. More movie sets, more interviews, more lonely hotel rooms. But something inside him felt different now, lighter, stronger. He stood, walked to the altar, and placed his battered notebook there like an offering. It was not full of sermons or rules, just simple truths, written in shaky handwriting by a man who had lost too much to believe in nothing. "What happens now?" Claire asked behind him. Keanu turned and smiled. "Now they carry it forward. The students, you, everyone who heard something true and felt their heart wake up. That's how faith works, one heart at a time." On his way out, he passed a group of students kneeling together in the back row, heads bowed, hands joined. One looked up and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Reeves." He paused, pressing a hand to his chest. "Don't thank me," he said. "Thank the light that never goes out, even when we do, outside." The cold air wrapped around him like a blessing. He looked back at the old chapel, the candles still, flickering behind the stained glass like tiny stars. As he walked to his car, his phone buzzed again. It was a message from a name he did not expect. Professor Cole. The message was short. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just angry. Maybe I don't want to be anymore." Keanu smiled through tears. He typed back, "It's never too late." He drove away slowly, the students' candles burning bright in his mind, their songs of hope echoing in his heart. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain: the truth, spoken with love, would always outlive the loudest lie, and he would keep speaking it, one broken heart at a time.